Hello, friends. Welcome back to a Blazor Power Hour. I'm going to be working today on a to-do example, and I know those are so overdone and boring, so I wanted to spice this up a little bit. This is a fun little project I did a while back, and we're going to go through it live on the show today. I added an undo feature. I thought that would be pretty cool because I know .NET pretty well, and I thought I could implement it very simply. It could be used for some more advanced, realistic undo behaviors at some point. I'll get into that at the end on why you might want to fine-tune this thing when it's done, but it should be fun, so stick around. We'll work on that. So let me get my screen share up here real quick. I'm in Visual Studio. As we always do on this show, we use Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code, and we're going to build something in an hour, or at least try to get there in an hour, and see what we can get done. That's why it's the Blazor Power Hour. If you ever have suggestions for the show, anything that you'd like me to try to cover, just give me a shout in the comments or on Twitter. And I've actually built some of the things that people have suggested on the show, as long as they're within that realm of, can we do it in an hour? We did a really great show one time about swipe gestures, and that was a lot of fun. So that came from a suggestion. And I'm pretty sure I got the font size bumped up pretty good here. If you can't see it anytime, let me know, or you can't hear, let me know. So I'm going to go and start a brand new Blazor project. I'm going to do create a new project, and this is going to be in .NET 5. I'm not going to run around with .NET 6 today, just to avoid any compilation issues or anything that we might have with the newer bits. So I'm going to choose a WebAssembly app. We'll hit next, and this is going to be the ToDo with undo app. Next, we're going to stay on, like I said, .NET 5 today. I don't really need a hosted app right now. This is just going to be all done locally, and we'll create that. So we've got, while this spins up, we've got some great shows coming up on the channel this week. Alyssa and TJ are going to be back this afternoon talking about React. Alyssa joins me all of the time. Hey, Bit O'Brien. Welcome to the show. Alyssa joins me all the time. She is just a fantastic personality to have on the show. So TJ is going to have some fun later this afternoon talking about React with Alyssa, so don't miss that. And then tomorrow, Alyssa and I will do some VR on this channel. That's always a good time. So we are on a basic Blazor app here. We've got the usual pages and shared folder. I'm just going to open up pages today. And let's go ahead and just throw this in the index for now. So we'll clear out this junk that's in here, and we're going to put in a to-do type of a thing here. So we'll build out a quick to-do app in Blazor. So we'll have a to-do list. We need some sort of form to hold our to-do items. And I like to put this in like an edit form. So that means we're going to need a model of some kind, form, and some to-do items to put in that form. So we at least need the to-do item. Let's start with that. I'm just going to drop it under pages. Normally how to organize this is I would probably create, let's just do that. Let's create a new folder. We'll call this to-do list. Let's see, what can we call? Naming things is hard. We'll call it to-do feature. I like to put my features under a folder if I can. We'll save this index page. I'm going to close it and move it just so I don't get any weird errors. Whenever you're moving or renaming files in a Blazor app, sometimes things get a little bit crazy. Let's try a rebuild, see if any of those little false negatives come up. but sometimes you'll get some of the compiled components going into the wrong locations. So just wanted to double check and make sure that didn't happen. And under my to-do feature, let's go ahead and add a new class, and we'll call this one to-do item.cs. And this should be a pretty simple class. I don't think we're going to need to have a whole lot of stuff in here. It's just going to have basically the text of the item. So we'll do a property, and this is going to be a string, and it will have the title of our to-do item. And then we'll have another property that will be whether that item is done or not. Usual to-do type of a thing. So we're taking this, and then we'll end up adding some undo features to it. Yeah, Alyssa was a little sick yesterday. I haven't talked to her yet today. Hopefully she's feeling better. I think she's got the usual cold that just runs around. Our family had it a couple weeks or a month ago as well. So coming out of quarantine and starting to, get into larger crowds of people and stuff, the usual things are starting to spread now. So it happens. It's just part of life, right? So we've got our to-do page. We've got a form now. What we need to make a form more complete or actually function is we need a model. So that was what we were doing with that to-do item, is creating a model. So we need to create a code block here, and we'll call this one, I think I would like to call it like new to-do item, new to-do, but we need a to-do item. And this is going to be the new to-do item that is in our edit form. And we can just say new if we're on C#9. So we don't even need to specify anything. It can infer the type to-do item because that is what the field is. And then the model is going to be that new to-do item. Now, this will get a little bit more interesting as we get into state management with this. We also need an onValid submit for this to do anything. So when the form is valid, we need to be able to do something with this new item, like stash it in a list or something like that. So let's just create a method here. We'll call it add to do, and we will take and do something with our new to do item in this method. So we don't have a list or anything yet. So that's probably what we need next. So we need to take whatever's going to be in this form and our new to-do item and add it to a list. So let's just start with a list of to-do item. And let's see here, just so we don't get any kind of null references, we'll just new that guy up from the get-go. This will make it an empty list of to-do items, which is better than having null, because when you try to call add on it, you're going to throw an error. So I always like to just new that up if I can. And then we can, in the add to do, we will call to do items dot add, and then we'll stash this to do item in that list of items. And that should do it. Let's go ahead and complete the form now. We'll pop our method up here to handle the valid submit, and then we need to build out the actual form for it. So let's start with some really basic stuff, and then we'll kind of pretty this up a little bit. We need an input. And we'll just go with the raw HTML here. We'll throw a placeholder on it and say something to do. I think I got some of the basics for this out of the docs.microsoft.com. I think this is your building your first Blazor app actually runs through some of this. So this might look a little bit familiar, but we're going to change this pretty drastically in a bit. So we'll say bind. We want to bind our new to-do item, the title, to this box. And also, we want to have a submit button in here. So we'll call this button type. I think the default is submit, so we'll leave that alone. We don't quite need a type on that yet. And we don't need to bind it any kind of on-click event or anything here, because this on-valid submit is going to handle that default button submit for us. We'll call this add. So that should be able to add the button to the list. Let's check out our progress so far and see if we're getting anywhere with this, which I think we should be just fine adding a few test items to a list, but we are not displaying that anywhere. So that would be probably the next obvious step, is to just kind of for each over this and write out the items on the screen so we can see them. So let's throw this in an unordered list. The obligatory unordered list. Actually, an ordered list would probably work better here, but I won't go into semantic HTML today and talk about why that is, but we can use OL or UL here, and we'll just write these out into, whoops, I need an @ symbol there, and we'll throw the title out there. And we'll try to run that again and check our work. Now, this would be super handy with unit tests. We wouldn't have to keep going back to the browser, but again, that's for another show. So another thing we want to do is validate this and also clear it out afterwards. So after we add the item, we would say new to do is null, and then to validate, we'll have to go back and change the model. But let's check and make sure that we're clearing this properly first. And nope, that does not work. It did not like that at all. Edit context requires a model parameter. That was not the error I was expecting. I was expecting some... Let's try. I was expecting a null reference error since there's some data binding here. All right. Let's go back and... Oh, sorry. Null is bad. Null is bad. Don't do that. I meant new, not null. We want to clear it out and create a new empty instance, not null it. So now this should work just fine. It feels like a Monday for me. That's all I can say. So we've got the list starting to display here. Whoops. Let's go ahead and add some validation now. We'll go back to our to-do item, and we'll just pop a required on here. And I'll hit Control period because this requires system component model data annotations, and that will make that field required now, so we can't submit empty items into our to-do list. I'll clean up this with a remove and sort usings, and we probably won't need to revisit this again. That one can go away, and we can always go back. Hello, Mr. Magoo. We have about completed the to-do portion. We're going to get into state management in just a second. Before I start working on state, though, I want to make sure I've got data validation in here. So let's go ahead and throw in a data annotation validator. Nice to have you back, Mr. Magoo. It's been a while, I think, since I've seen you around. Let's go ahead and make this a little bit more pretty, too. We'll do a div here, and throw a form group around it. We do have Bootstrap installed on here. It's one of the things that is still part of the default template for Visual, or not Visual Studio, but for Blazor, which is something that is nice to have out of the gates for the Hello World style app that, it gets us running. It gets us to this point on the show where we can just start coding. So Bootstrap does have its advantages. When I work on bigger projects, I like to rip it out. But that's, again, for another show. You probably heard me say that before, though. Not a big surprise, right? All right, so we have... Let's try to clean this up a little bit here. We'll add a class of BTN primary. This is going to be the primary one, is to add the item. My Bootstrap skills are still pretty efficient. I can remember some of these things, even though it's been a little while. And now it's starting to look just a little bit better. We can't remove items yet. We'll have to work on that soon. So we need to be able to remove items. And then when we remove items, I want to add an undo feature so we can clear out any changes that we made by accident in case we cleaned up our to-do list too much and we want to go back and undo something. We'll be able to do that, and for all of that we'll need some state management. So we'll kind of dive in pretty quick here once we get the form set up. All right, so I've got my validator, I've got my input box, and I've got a button here. The next thing I want to do is add a checkbox to this list item. So when I click on the checkbox, I can remove that item from the list. So let's go ahead and set that up next. So inside of our list item, we'll expand this a little bit. And we are going to add a checkbox. So this is going to change. Actually, this will be the same. This will stay. I'm going to put a span around it just so we can identify where the title is. And then in front of the title, I'm going to add an input here. And the type of this input is going to be checkbox, so we can actually check the item. And I'm going to use some binding here to say the to-do is going to have the isDone property bound here. So this will bind our checkbox to that isDone value. So if we go back to the app, which should be rerunning again, I hit test. Now we have a checkbox in front of that item and is now marked done. But we need another button here to tell it that we can remove it. And before we get into that, just right quick, let's go ahead and just make this this UL a little bit better looking. We'll throw a class on it and we'll just say list group. And then each one of these will be a class of list group item. Not time, item. Getting a little dyslexic in my old age. All right. Make sure we have a fresh copy here, and that looks a little bit better. Now there's at least some UI around it that makes it a little bit better. And we'll go ahead and throw a HR down here as well, just a little horizontal rule to break this up a little bit. So this is looking good. Next thing we need is a button to remove. And let's go ahead and throw a class on this one. We'll say btn btn-danger, because this is going to be a destructive operation. We'll say remove. What's a good terminology? Remove or clear. So we'll clear the finished items from our list. Now, let's think about this a little bit. If let's look at our to-do list. I can hit clear finished, and there's nothing in the list, and it's throwing a validation message here. So that's kind of awkward. I have to have something in the box before I can clear finished, and clear finished can be pressed at any time, even if there's no items in the list. So we're starting to have to solve some problems here. So the next thing that we probably want to do is work on this button a little bit. So let's take our list here, because we're going to be removing things from it. But let's tidy things up a bit and just throw a read-only property on it called, let's see, bool can undo. Or sorry, not can undo. Can remove. What do we want to call that? Because we want to make sure we can actually do the remove with it. Can clear. How about that? And what can clear will be is just a quick backing field here. And what we can say is our to-do items, if there's any of them that are an item that is done, then that is something that we can clear. So we'll go back up here now to the button and set disabled to can clear. Let's see if that does it. There we go. It's happy now. It wanted the @ symbol because this is an HTML button, I believe. So we're going to just check and make sure there's to-do items that are checked to be done before we even bother letting somebody click that button. Let's go back and take a look at this and see, is it not applying? Let's try rebuilding that, because it should. All right, it's not going to play nice with me. So let's double check this logic here. I should be able to say disabled can clear if to-do items, if any of them are done. All right. Let's just double check that logic real quick. We'll just write out down here if there's a can clear value. False. So this means something's wrong with our button and it's not disabling properly. So let's try to look at our HTML real quick and see what's happening with it. Where is the slider? So I can't, oh, there we go. There we go. Clear finished is not being disabled for some reason. Oh, I've got the logic reversed, actually. That's what my problem is. It should be not. I always get that one backward. Get that one backwards. Tinker with the render tree builder a bit. Kind of wonder how it handles loops and the sequence of number generations. Yeah, so you don't actually need the decompiler to see that. You can, it's a little bit of a sidebar. We can try to take a look. You can toggle your view to a folder view, and you can dig into the OBJ folder, then under debug, .NET, whatever version you're on, and then you will see, where is this at? Is it under, yeah, Razor, Pages, and then these g.cs files. If we look under g.cs, let's look at the page we are on. They're kind of messy, but these are the source files for the things that you create. And we can actually go down here and see a for loop for each to do and to do items. It is creating the render tree in that loop. These are explicitly set static numbers. So I don't remember how it, I don't know if it assigns more numbers for the additional items that end up being rendered in that list. So this is the initial items that are here. I can't remember off the top of my head, but that's how you can look at it. We'll have to dig into how it handles those again another time. Mr. Magoo may have an answer. Also, blazoruniversity.com is a good place to read about that as well. So where were we? We've got, this was not being toggled for some reason. Oh, because I had the logic reversed. So to set it to disabled is needs to be true, not false. So if there are any to-do items, which is true, we'll go ahead and flip that bit and disable or enable the box. And I've got a process running somewhere that's hanging the app. So let me see if I can figure out where. Oh, I didn't put it back in project mode. There we go. Now I should be able to run it. I was still in folder view. Why is... All right, this is fighting me. What am I doing wrong? So can clear. Let's go ahead and write that back out to the page again. Can clear is true, so this should be disabled. Disabled should be equal to true. And there it is. I have it on the wrong button. Usually, chat, you're great at catching these things. I put the disabled on the wrong button. So we don't want to be able to clear things if there's nothing to clear. So let's go back again. And we will test this again. We need to add the item and then check the box. And then our clear toggles for us. We can click the button, but it's still throwing validation and it doesn't have anything to do. We haven't assigned a delegate for it yet. So I'll take this little test flag off of here. We will need to do something with this button. So next thing I want to do, let's move that down a line like that, just to clean this up, because we're going to be adding another attribute here. First of all, let's fix the validation thing. So by default, the type of a button is a submit. And that's going to be fine for our add button, but not for our clear button. So this is going to be just button. And what this tells our form is this is our default submit button. This is just a standard button. If we were to hit enter, the default behavior should be this. And then we don't want to validate either with this just generic button. So we should be able to just click this now and it shouldn't trigger validation. So if I test that out and I check my box and I hit clear, notice there's no validation. So that's problem number one fixed. Problem number two is it doesn't do anything. It is a disable, or it is a clear finished button that doesn't do anything. So we'll do at, not bind, on click. We need the at symbol here because this is a and standard HTML button. So the @ symbol goes before the onClick method to tell Blazor that this is not a JavaScript onClick, but this is a .NET onClick. So onClick, we need to do something in an event. So we'll do void clear to-dos. This is going to be just some clever link here. So one way that we can check a bunch of things and then go back and clear it is just to use a little link foo here. So what I'm going to do is say to do items equals to do items dot where the item is to do, whoops, is done. And I want the opposite. And this needs to be casted back to list because I'm getting an Ienumerable back from link. So what link's going to do is actually make a copy of the list, and it's going to give me everything that is not done, because the ones that are done I want to remove from the list. So that's just going to chuck everything out of the list that has the check mark next to it. So that should clear our items. Let's try that one. And I've got a build error. So there's, oh, I forgot to assign that delegate. So we'll call this clear to-dos. And now I should be able to run back and clear those out. So we'll say test, test 2, 3, whatever, test again. And then if I'm going to click the middle one, hit clear finished, it's removing that middle one. So that's a quick validation that our logic is working. And notice our clear button went back to saying that it is disabled, and we can always add new items to that list. Good stuff. We're starting to get somewhere. So the next thing I want to do is, if I'm in my example here, I need to, feed the dogs. And I'm removing items kind of crazily here, and I hit clear finished, but I really didn't feed the dogs yet, but I already hit the button, and I'm like, oh, I wish I could just undo that because I cleared some items out. Now I'm going to have to go back and add the items in I accidentally cleared. So let's add another button. And this button is going to be undo. Type equals button. Again, we don't want to validate that. We just want to undo the things that we just did. For class, let's see, what is a good button class for an undo button? We don't want to make it the most prominent thing on here. So let's do a button secondary, and we will make it outlined. Outline comes first, apparently. Outline, secondary. That will give it a little less prominence. And then, since the text is undo, Blazor's so smart, it'll know what to do with it, and we're done, right? No, it's not that easy. I wish it was that easy. I wish we could just click undo and it would just magically know that's what we wanted to undo, but that's not going to work. So we're going to refactor this a little bit. So we've got our to-do items. The to-do list works. It's that basic. This is about where the usual to-do list Hello World app ends, right? You've got your to-do list working. You can add and remove items from it. Just saw that, by the way. Sorry, I didn't notice. Thank you for the to list. And then, we might want to take a snapshot of our memory and reload that snapshot. That's a good idea. That's kind of what we're going to do. Let's take a look at how we can refactor this out a little bit first, because we want to make this, first of all, we want state here. What's really annoying is our app is, we have some, hang on, this has to be something really important that we're adding to our list. And then if we go over here and come back, our list is clear. That's not a good UX. We need to at least persist this a little bit. Let's add some state management to this. I'm going to, right here in my feature folder, where my to-do list view and my items are, add the state. So let's go ahead and say class is to-do state. And we're going to start migrating some of the logic over to our state manager instead. It seems like a good feature, right? So one of the things we want to do is store the list of items in the state. Let's start with that. I think that would be a good place to begin. So I think I'm going to switch this to an Ienumerable just to make things a little bit easier here. We've got a list, and just trying to think through this real quick. If I want to use an Ienumerable instead. Let's go ahead and keep it as a list for now. So we'll put our to-do items in here, and we're going to need to change some capitalization here, unless now we need to make this a prop. Well, let's go ahead and keep this as a backing field for now. And then we need to be able to access this list of items. We can either make this a property, or we can set up a new property. I'm trying to think how I'd like to do this. Let's go ahead and make it a property. Let's go ahead and make this to-do items public. We'll keep it a list for now. We'll let it be items equals get and set. Throw a getter and setter on it and set it to new. So we'll start with that. We need to remove this now, and this is going to throw off a lot of things, and that's okay. And we need to inject it here at inject. So we'll use dependency injection here, and we'll pull in our to-do list items. This is going to be our to-do state, and I'm just simply going to call it state here. This should make it fairly easy. Now, before we forget, we need to go over to our program CS and tell dependency injection where to find this to-do list state. So we'll go to Builder Services and add a new scoped item of to-do state. We'll hit Control period. It's under to-do features. We'll bring that in and save it. So notice that namespace it just added. To-do, pages, and features. To-do feature. So just brought that in. We have state here. Now we need to go clean up some of our code. So we'll say state dot to-do item instead of just calling it directly. So it's going to be a little copy and replace type of thing here. We need to move this clear method as well. Let's go ahead and push that clear method over. So this is going to be a public method here. We'll call clear ToDos. And we'll just go ahead and move this logic over. And this is going to be to do, nope, items dot where, actually we need the entire bit here. Let's make sure we get this right. We just need to capitalize. So we'll capitalize these out. And now we need to come back over here and clear ToDos we can get rid of, because it is now over here in our state manager. And where is clear? Clear button, disabled, unclick. There we go. So we'll just say state.clear ToDos. So we've moved that over. So we're going to do a lot of this. We're going to start moving things on over to this here. Now, I want to move my add over there. It's going to take a little bit of finessing though. So it's going to change that method a little bit. So add to do is still void add to do. And then it's going to accept a to do item, because it doesn't have context of our form anymore. And we can pull that state out of there too. So this is going to add the new to do. We'll go ahead and rename this up here as well. We'll just let that match what it used to say. There we go. So we're going to add the new to do item. And then in here, we can just keep the new to do, but we need to tell state to add the to do and pass in the new to do item from our form. So we've patched that in now. Let's see how we should be good and not have any errors. So we should be able to add an item, leave the page, come back, and our item is still there. Let's add another item. And again, state is managed fine, just fine. I can clear that item out just fine. Everything looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and move over our can clear flag as well. Go ahead and make this part of our state too. So we'll just throw a convenience method here. We just need to make it public. I like to have these nice convenience methods around. So everything is pretty intuitive as far as what's happening with our code. So we need to go back to our our button and say state can clear. Make sure we can clear those items out of the list that's in the state manager. And that's making it look pretty nice in our code block. That took a lot of our code and moved it out to another place where it can be managed properly. And it's given us the ability to manage that state, navigate away, and come back. I don't think we need the side-by-side view anymore. We can ditch that. We're not moving code over. I like to have that up when we're kind of comparing what we used to have with what we have now. And this looks pretty good. Let's try to see if we can get this to undo now. This is going to be the tricky part. We have an undo button. The undo button doesn't quite do anything, but we're going to go into the state manager where most of this work's going to be done. So here, let's stub this out on our form so we don't have to keep coming back here for anything. We'll say on click. There we go. On click. And IntelliSense gave up on me. There we are. We're going to say state, and then we're going to say undo. And that is the thing that we need to build. So now we can go over to our to-do state, and we'll add that undo. Void undo. And then in undo, we'll just do throw new not implemented exception, just to hold our place. So we get a good form here, and now we don't have to go back and edit the form at all. That should be a done deal. The undo button should just work, or not should just work, but I mean, it won't cause any compile errors. So we won't have to go back and revisit that until a little bit later. All right, so we want to put some kind of state managing thing in here that can have an undo functionality to it. So we're probably going to need something that is a little more robust than a list. Now, I've tinkered with this before to get something kind of easy to manage done here. We're going to use a stack. So what we're actually going to do is similar to what Fuel said. Where is that comment at? We're going to take a snapshot of memory and save it. So I was trying to find that. I was going to highlight it. Oh, there it is right there. So if we could just take a snapshot of our memory and reload it with our undo button, that would work. So this is going to be a public field here, but it's going to be read only because it's going to be managed within our state manager. And I'm going to use a stack, and the stack is going to be an Ienumerable of to-do items. And this is going to be our to-do buffer. So we have a to-do buffer. It's going to buffer our undo items. And let's see if we can do some C# 9 magic here and just say new. That'll save us a lot of code, because we would have to say a new stack of Ienumerable of T item, and then there's a lot of braces on that thing. So we're headed in the right direction. Yeah, an undo redo stack of actions would be very cool. I don't think we'll have the redo, but this will be pretty simple for an undo. And then this can be used for like bigger ideas. You can take this and run with it and make whatever type of thing that you would like. Another thing that we want to do is similar to our can clear. Let's go ahead and just start this out with a nice API and say bool can undo. Undo. And then this is going to be very similar logic. So it's going to be if the to-do buffer count is greater than 0, we can undo. So if there's anything in our buffer, we're able to click an undo button. The undo action can be invoked. Otherwise, you can't undo. You can't undo something that's not there. We don't want to be pushing and popping on a stack that doesn't have any items in it. We're going to throw an exception if that happens. So we don't want to do that. The next thing that we want to do is change the way that we handle our clear. So we can check to see if there's nothing on our stack, but in order to actually be able to have something to undo, we have to put something in the buffer. We haven't put anything in the buffer yet. So under undo, where we haven't implemented anything yet, I'm just going to throw a guard on this, just because I don't trust developers. I just don't. I'm sorry, I don't trust you. I don't trust me. I don't trust you. I don't trust any of us. So let's throw a guard on this, and we'll say if to do buffer count, or actually we can just reuse. We can say if not can undo. Sorry, if can undo. Backwards. If can undo, then we'll undo. Oh, I'm doing this backwards. This still is valid though. I got a little ahead of myself. So I meant to do the clear first. We're doing the undo first. So what we'll have to do here, let's just put a comment in here, and this will be our push. Down here, we're going to do pop. So we're going to pop it off our buffer. So we'll pop that. So this is going to remove the last item from our buffer. Now remember, we're not putting just a single to-do item in our buffer. Our buffer is the entire list of to-do items. So it's going to restore the entire list. So popping that stack means we're going to take an entire state, basically, and remove it from that buffer, which will get us back to the previous state that we had. Am I having redo as well? No, I don't plan on doing redo just yet. But we'll take a look. We're going to run out of time before I get that far. Why is stack read only and the others are auto properties? What's the sense? I might just need to clean that up. That's all. I might have just got ahead of myself. The state manager is going to be responsible for newing up the stack. We don't want something replacing the buffer. So this will make it so that we cannot do a to-do buffer equals new buffer. It will only allow someone to say to do buffer and call a method on it. So we may actually make this private eventually. I don't know why it's public even, but that's something that I need to revisit. Good question though, silly Queen X. We need to push an item on the stack. So we need to take our to-do list here, and we need to push the items on a stack. So we need to say to-do buffer push, and this is going to get our items and put them in the buffer. I think what we need to do here is we're going to have the same logic here, and this is going to end up actually going away, and we're going to get the top item off of our to-do list items. So to-do list items actually will it's not going to go away necessarily. It's going to be changed pretty drastically. So you can see here when we're clearing this, we're not going to need this to-do list items anymore because we have the to-do list items that we've put in the buffer. So instead of the to-do list items, we are going to need the top item off of that buffer list. So we're going to have to come up with a new property and replace the to-do list items. So we're going to use the same logic here. We're going to take the to-do buffer and push the items in it. We're kind of at a crossroads though, where we need a list of things, but we don't have that list of things. So let's create another simple property here. Yeah, we'll get into consistency in a minute. Let's finish up our proof of concept, and then we can go back and refactor. But those are great comments. So what I want to do here is create something that gives me the current state. So let's get an Ienumerable of to-do item. And that is going to be our current state. So we'll call this one current. And this is going to return our to-do buffer. And we'll say to-do buffer dot peak. So we don't want to remove it. If we do pop, it will remove it. So we want a peak, which will give us the item without removing it. So whenever we call current, we're going to look at the top list of to-do items and see what's in it. So wherever I have my to-do buffer or my to-do items, I can go and replace it with current. And this will give me my current list of items. Oops, I cannot. So add is actually going to have to be changed as well. So we'll get into that one in just a second. So now we've got to-do buffer push where the current list of items is done. And then we need to go back here and change our to-do add items as well. So when we add items, we're going to have to create a new to-do list and shove it into that stack as well. So let's see, we need var, we need a new state here. It's going to be a new list of to-do items. And then we're going to take the current list of to-do items and append a new item to it. New item, new to-do. So we're essentially taking this, making a copy of it. So I'm going to say, take a copy of the current state and add a new item to it. And then we'll take the buffer and push an item into it. And that's going to be the new state. So the buffer gets updated, and that will mean our current item is peaked at, and we have the latest item there. So once you start weaving this in, it starts affecting other things. So we are actually going to have to go back to our form and make a change. There may be some sneaky things that catch us here, though. Let's go back to our form real quick. And in our form, we have our to-do items. That is throwing an error. So what we actually need here is current. So we want to peek at the current stack. That is the major change. Undo was already there. So it looks like we're pretty good here, except I want to add one more thing to my to-do button. I want to say disabled equals not can undo. I think this is going to have to go in a lambda expression just so it understands the not. And this is state. God, can't undo. If we cannot undo, then we'll disable that button. We'll save all of that and pray to the demo gods that something doesn't go wrong, but I have a feeling that I'm missing something. And that feeling is true because we're at the top of the hour for one, and why not have an error when you're supposed to be done? But stack empty. So we have an empty stack, and I believe we're trying to peek at the empty stack. So remember, we're calling peek on the current item. We've newed up an item, but there's nothing in the buffer. So that's not going to work for us. So when we have current, what we need to actually do here is, so I'm trying to see chat while I do this here. And then we can go clean up some things as Silly Queen suggests. There's some inconsistencies in my ramblings here. So we would maybe want to check the to-do buffer, make sure there's something in it. So if there's nothing in it, can we use any? If there's anything in it, then we'll go ahead and return. Let's reverse this. If there's not, no, we can do it that way. So if there's something in it, we'll go ahead and peek it. If there's not anything in it, then we'll return a new list of to-do items. And that's just an empty list. And with C# magic, I think we can just say new, actually. Can we? Is it going to let me do that with a ternary? No, it's not going. It says, nope, you need to be explicit. Good enough. So this is saying, are there anything is there anything in the buffer? If there is something in the buffer, return the buffer. If there's not anything, just return a new list of items, an empty list of items, so our UI doesn't explode. Cool. We're going to check it, return it, create a new one if there's nothing. ASSD on YouTube. This is Blazor. This is C#. And we are doing an advanced to-do list with an undo to-do list. So Blazor is a .NET framework that runs C#. You can see we've got our error out of the way. So we can add that. Oh, our undo button just lit up. Let's undo it. It just went away. Test again. Test 2 and test 3. And let's get some more. Test 4. It's pushed all of those states on the stack. So there's actually 4 stacks out there, or 4 items on the stack. One has test 1, one has test 1 and 2, one has test 1, 2, and 3, and one test 3, and I can't count, so I put 5. So you can see how this could be a bit of a memory hog. We're not going to get into details on how to clean all that up. You might want to set some limits on your stack. So if it's a certain height, you might want to do some magic to kind of clean it up from time to time. I don't know if a standard .NET stack is good for that, because what you want to do is kind of stacks are last in, first out. But what you want to do is take the first item out and kind of have it fall off. You want a rotating, a sliding stack. I don't know the right terminology for it off the top of my head. But so item 0 would just drop off after you get so many items in the stack. So you don't want to manage that so memory doesn't get to be a problem. But for our simple demo, we should be able to just undo, and then we can say test 6, add that in there. So it is managing the undo state of this list. And if I were to select these items and clear them, I could get them back. Ring buffer, thank you, Fuel. That is the exact name. So there is not a ring buffer that is built into .NET that I'm aware of. So a ring buffer would be the perfect solution for this. You might have to add one. Maybe there's a NuGet package out there, something like that. And then final step here would be to clean this up. Now, since the buffer is hidden behind a lot of public properties already, this could probably be private read-only stack. That shouldn't cause any errors. So we can start cleaning that up. So it's not even a property anymore. It's just a field. We'll go ahead and make that to-do buffer. Some people like this as well. We can throw the old underscore thing on that. We'd have to, of course, rename some of this stuff to take care of it. So just doing a little refactoring here. So this becomes private. Maybe this silly queen is making you feel a little bit better. Implement a thread-safe, lockless ring buffer. You could probably do something like that with some of the concurrent dictionary stuff that's in .NET. You'd have to kind of build an API around it, but I think you could do that. I'd love to see what folks come up with, though, based off of the idea here. So we've got some auto-implemented properties here. That one got cleared up. I think Silly Queen is happy. Let's see. We've got this. This can be cleaned up. We can throw that in a lambda expression, an expression-bodied member, and that is done. We might want to throw a guard around that, though, actually. Even though we've got some checks in there. What we don't want to do is create buffers if there's nothing to do, but we've got a disabled state in our list item here, so we can't click the button in the UI to force a undo if there's nothing to undo. But we're not checking anything before we clear to-dos. So there's no safety mechanism on here to keep us from calling clear inappropriately. So that might be something that we need to add. So we could actually, let's back this train up and say if can clear. So if we can't clear it, then we don't want to do anything and cause some invalid state in the buffer. So we'll just make sure that we can clear it. So we're validating this both on the UI and in the state, which is nice, because in the UI we're calling can clear to disable the button, and in the state we're calling can clear to make sure that the person that developed the UI didn't call clear to-dos from the state inappropriately. So we kind of got a win-win there. It's not as efficient, obviously, because we're counting items twice, but at least it's not going to let the program get into an invalid state. So that's a win. Wish everything was expressions and no statements. You gotta have statements somewhere. You gotta have statements somewhere. I don't know how you would do this without a statement. So you need to have some, but you can get away with a lot of expressions like I'm doing here. So that's the gist of it. So we've got a stack. Again, not the most efficient thing here because you can blow up your memory after a while, but it does work. So we've got a stack where we've got a convenience method to peek at the stack without throwing an error. So this is, it's peeking, but it's checking to see if there's anything that can be peeked before it's done. So this gives our current state before anything is undone or added to it. We got a convenience method to see if we're able to undo, and one to see if we can clear the list. Actually, this needs to be probably, no wait, this one's fine, I think. I was going to say that one needs to be reversed, or this one, can undo needs to be negated. I don't think undo does, but we're just doing a quick review before I go here. F# can be confusing, yeah. F# great though. I love functional programming stuff. We can't use F# in Blazor, so if we could, I'd probably learn it and try it out. We're going to create a new item, a new list of to-do items, and make a copy. This is a nice way to make a copy of a list, by the way. So you call new list item and pass in an existing list as an argument, and it will copy it. And then you can even append items with this short syntax here. So what this is actually doing is saying new, give me a new list of to-do item. Then it is saying, we'll just call it T for the example. And then it's saying T add range. And then it's saying T add. So all three of these things get combined in the one statement, which I like. So if you're kind of confused as to what this might mean, this is the new list of to-do item. This is the new list with the add range method. And this is the new list after the add range has happened. We're just going to call add on it. So it's new, add range, add item. And you get all three of those in one command, one statement there, and then you push that into the buffer. When we clear items, we're going to, when we clear items, we're going to create another another buffer, or another list, I mean, on the buffer. So we'll push in the current. So we're going to peek the current list, remove the done items from it, and push it into the stack. So again, a lot of things happening, but all in one line. When we undo, we're just going to call pop. That's the easy one. So we're just going to delete pretty much the current state and get back the previous one. So there is our undo to do. So we'll take one last look at it. So what's happened is our state has looked and noticed there is no current stack. There's no buffer. So it's returned a new empty list. So there's nothing to display, but there's no errors. We'll add an item to it. So it's going to take that empty list. So there's still a state to undo to. So if we hit undo, we'll get that empty list back. But what it's done is it's taken an item and added it. It's first of all added the empty state to the stack, and then we've taken that empty state and added an item to it, and that is our current state. And then if we do it again, we're going to clone that list again, so we actually have 3 items in our to-do stack. And then we can actually undo that thing we added, and it doesn't really matter what the number is. I can come in and clear these items out or not. Did I just hit an invalid state in this? Oopsie. Maybe that reversed logic thing I was talking about is a thing. So yeah, so I think that is, let's see, it's actually not an exception. It's going to be here. Can undo, or can clear, I mean. Can clear, this one needs to be, I was right earlier. We need to take that off there. That needs to be in the UI. That's misleading. So this needs to be negated here. Because the can clear has, if this was enabled, then we could keep can clear. Since disabled is the reverse logic of being able to do something, we need to put that in there, and then that fixes that bug. Sorry about that one. So I was saying we've got our queue built up. We check an item, clear it off. We can get it back now. And that's our show. That's all I've got, folks. We've got Alyssa and TJ coming up this afternoon. I think it's at 1 or 2 o'clock today. So if you want to learn a bit about React and just watch a fun show, they are coming up. If you hit the follow button, you'll just get a notification for that. So you don't have to worry about tuning in at the right time. Just hit follow and you'll get a notification through your emails and through your Twitch. So make sure you do that if you haven't followed already. Thank you for joining me. Yeah, I know poor Alyssa's not feeling well, but I think they're still scheduled to go today. Thanks for joining me, Fuel and Silly Queen and Mr. Magoo, if you're still here. Oh, Smab UK, I just noticed you're there as well. Thank you all for joining me for the Blazor Power Hour. Again, if you have suggestions, please drop them in my Twitter or however else. You can even message me here on Twitch through the private message system here. If you have something that you want to see you think fits in an hour, we can try to make that happen. Until tomorrow, I will see you. Let's go ahead and raid someone because we don't have anything coming up until later this afternoon. As far as raids go, let's see. Let me see who's online that I know is going to have a good show. 425 show is available to raid. So let's do a 425 show. These are some folks from Microsoft, etc. They put on a good show. Do some Azure stuff and whatnot. So go say hi to 425 show for me. It's been a great Blazor Power Hour today. We did ToDo with an undo. It was a lot of fun. It was a little fast pace. So if you missed some of it, hit the rewind on Twitch or catch it on YouTube after we do the upload there. That's youtube.com/Telerik. You'll find our shows. This is Code It Live.